Sometimes it comes wrapped in applause, delivered with a smile, and justified as professional. The night my wife served me divorce papers, the room was filled with people who believed they were witnessing the beginning of something powerful. What they didn't realize was that they were watching the end of something they never knew existed. Sarah's law firm grand opening was held downtown, in one of those modern event spaces with exposed brick, steel beams, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Everything about it said success. Valet parking, catered food that looked too pretty to eat, a printed program with her firm's logo embossed in gold. I arrived early as usual. I wore a charcoal suit I'd owned for years. Proper tailoring. Nothing flashy. I don't dress to impress strangers. I dress to respect myself. As I stood outside adjusting my cufflinks, I remember feeling proud. Not proud of myself. Proud of her. 17 years earlier, Sarah had been a woman with ambition, but no capital, no connections, and no safety net. I had been all three. Inside, the room buzzed. Attorneys shook hands. Business owners exchanged cards. Local officials smiled for photos. I recognized some faces. People Sarah had introduced me to over the years as friends. They nodded politely, though something in their eyes had changed. That's when I felt it. Not hostility. Dismissal. Conversations lowered when I walked past. Smiles tightened. I heard someone near the bar whisper, "That's him," followed by a short laugh. I told myself I was imagining it. I'd spent decades in boardrooms. I knew how to read a room, but I didn't want to believe it. Then Sarah appeared. She moved through the crowd like she belonged at the center of it. Navy dress, sharp heels, hair pinned back just enough to look authoritative. She looked confident, accomplished. She hugged me for the cameras, kissed my cheek, then slipped a thick envelope into my hand, like it was nothing more than a program. "Let's be adults," she said quietly. "This is business." I looked down at the envelope. My name was typed neatly on the front. Divorce papers. Filed that afternoon. Served at her grand opening. Moments later, she stepped onto the small stage to applause and thanked everyone who had supported her journey. Investors, mentors, colleagues, everyone except me. I left before anyone noticed. I don't remember the drive home. I remember unlocking the front door to a house that still thought it had a married man living in it. The lemon cleaner, Sarah-like, still hung in the air. Her shoes were still by the door. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at the envelope without opening it. 17 years of marriage reduced to paper. What Sarah never understood, what she never bothered to ask, was how that law firm came to exist at all. I didn't just emotionally support her dream. I financed it. When Sarah decided to go to law school in her 40s, most people called it unrealistic. I didn't. I believed in second acts. I told her I'd handle the money while she handled the work. And I did. Tuition, living expenses, bar prep, lost income while she studied. When she failed the bar the first time, she cried at this very table. I held her and told her it was just paper. She passed the second time. We celebrated quietly. When she wanted to open her own firm, the banks didn't take her seriously. No track record, thin credit, big promises. They took me seriously. Every lease was backed by my signature. Every line of credit carried my personal guarantee. Every startup expense flowed through accounts I structured. My name wasn't on the door. It was on the risk. That night, I opened the filing cabinet in the hallway, the one Sarah never touched. Inside were folders labeled in my handwriting. Clean, organized, methodical. I sat down and read. Personal guarantees, joint liability clauses, withdrawal provisions. I didn't feel angry. I felt focused. The next morning, I made coffee the way I always had. No rush, no shaking hands. I opened my laptop and treated the situation exactly as I would any dissolving partnership. I reviewed obligations. I assessed exposure. I planned an exit. One by one, I made phone calls. Professional, calm, precise. I'm withdrawing my personal guarantee, effective immediately, per Section 12. No accusations, no threats, just contracts doing what contracts do. By the end of the first day, Confirmation emails fill my inbox. By the second day, Sarah started calling. I didn't answer. Her messages shifted from confused to angry to desperate. You're risking my firm. You're humiliating me. You don't know what you're doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. I wasn't attacking her. I was removing myself from the blast radius. A week later, something unexpected happened. One of her clients contacted me privately. Nervous, careful with his words. Something about the billing didn't feel right. A retainer had moved when it shouldn't have. I asked him to send what he had. What I saw wasn't sloppy accounting. It was pressure. Client trust funds aren't flexible. They don't move to cover promises. And promises were being made, bonuses, expansions, appearances, that required money that wasn't hers to touch. That was the moment the story stopped being about my marriage. I submitted documents to the appropriate oversight board. No drama, no narrative, just facts. 2 weeks later, the hearing was scheduled. The courthouse was cold that morning. Marble floors, low voices, paper shuffling. Sarah arrived looking composed, flanked by a younger attorney. She didn't look at me at first. When the questions began, she answered smoothly, confidently. But paperwork doesn't care about confidence. Dates were read aloud. Amounts. Transfers. Then one of her own employees stood and spoke. Bonuses promised. Payroll delayed. Funds temporarily moved. The room went silent. The decision was calm. Clinical. Accounts frozen. Operations restricted. Formal review ordered. Sarah turned and looked at me then. Not angry. Not betrayed. She finally understood. Later that evening, she came to the house. No makeup. No performance. Just exhaustion. I didn't think you'd do this, she said. I didn't think you'd serve me divorce papers in public. I replied. She nodded, slowly. I got carried away. I know. The divorce proceeded quietly after that. No shouting. No public scenes. Just signatures. Life didn't collapse. It simplified. I started walking in the mornings, drinking coffee without checking my phone, helping younger men understand contracts before they signed them. Here's what I learned. Power doesn't shout. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't need applause. Power reads a fine print and knows when to stop holding something up. If you've ever been dismissed, underestimated, or erased in public, remember this. You don't need revenge. You need clarity. And clarity, given time, always collects what it's owed.